In California, I didn't ever come out here during the time I was working for Bobby Kennedy, but it's not about pigs, it's about dairy cattle, right? So California has been the leading dairy producing state for the last, it was always Wisconsin, right? For a very long time it was Wisconsin. And then California came out of nowhere, and how did they do that? Well, because they started raising. In Wisconsin in 1950, not that long ago, the average size herd of a dairy cow was, dairy herd, the average size was, I believe, was 20 animals. It was tiny. And even Wisconsin has gotten into bigger herd size, but it's still generally produced in relatively small herds in Wisconsin. But California did not do that. California came into the industry with big, concentrated confinement operations right away. And so they quickly became the #1 dairy producing state in the country. And we don't see it that much in Northern California, but the vast majority of the dairy production in the state of California is in huge dairies with thousands of animals and that are continually confined. They may have a dry lot area, a kind of a dirt lot where the cows can walk around in it, but they're never grazing after the point. Once they begin producing milk, they're never on grass again, and they're certainly not raising their own calves or anything like that. They're just basically in these buildings being milked, and that's their life. There's an incredible environmental benefit to grass. There's nothing better, because grass is, first of all, incredibly dense in its root growth, and therefore it holds everything to the earth better than anything else. It doesn't need to ever be plowed. Sometimes grass are part of a rotational system, and that's an excellent use of grass as well. But the majority of cattle the world over are actually grazed on lands that are never plowed. And there's nothing better than unplowed grasslands for food cultivation from an environmental perspective, because they hold the soils, they hold the moisture, they hold the phosphorus, the nitrogen, and now everybody's talking about they hold the carbon. And there's an enormous subculture that's happening, subterranean culture, that is just being discovered right now. In 1996, there was a scientist at USDA called Sarah Wright who discovered the existence of glomalin, which is now believed to be the key to carbon soil sequestration. That was just 1996. I mean, we're just discovering this stuff. And it's actually believed to make up about 15% of the soil organic matter. So it's a really important and significant substance. We just discovered this in 1996. So this whole notion that carbon can be sequestered in the soils is a very kind of new science, and it's newly emerging. But there's no way to do that better than on grasslands. And so I would argue that not only do cattle belong, and grazing animals belong in the food system, but they're absolutely essential. The roots are surrounded by a fungi that we now know is a symbiotic fungi. It's called arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. And actually, people have known about that for quite a while, but what they didn't know about was the glomalin, which is pictured in that photograph. That's a USDA photograph. And the little dots, the little green dots, are all photos of the glomalin. And that is the stuff that protects all of the fungi, and it is also the stuff that encapsulates the carbon in the soils. So there's a whole science that's emerging right now trying to understand all of these. They're extremely complex interrelationships between the roots and the fungi and the nutrients and the minerals in the soil. And all of this is very fragile. And the absolute best environment for this is rangelands and pasturelands. Why would we have our entire food system based on fossil fuels? It makes absolutely no sense. Animals are a way that we can continue to add fertility, as humans did for thousands of years, to the soil and continue to regenerate the soil without any fossil fuels. I mean, there are many, many benefits to animals in agriculture that I didn't even touch on. But the point is, in my view, they're absolutely essential, and they are most definitely defensible. And from a health standpoint, I could talk about that in a whole nother talk for hours, but I believe they're also a part of a healthy diet. So the answer to why eat animals, the answer is because the most sustainable food system includes animals.